I still remember the night like it's tattooed on my bones. The sound of the rain hitting the window, the dim glow of the TV I wasn't really watching, and the emptiness of the bed beside me. It was September 2019, a Thursday night, and my wife Lauren was supposed to be in Chicago for a 3-day business conference. She worked in marketing for a tech company that had been expanding pretty aggressively across the Midwest. Travel had become a normal part of her schedule. Sales pitches, client dinners, corporate training events. At least, that's what I thought. But that night, I had this ache in my gut that wouldn't let me rest. You know that quiet little voice in the back of your head that you try to ignore because it sounds paranoid, but at the same time it gnaws at you like an itch you can't reach? That's what I felt. I kept flipping through channels on the TV, ESPN, CNN, reruns of The Office on Comedy Central, but nothing could drown out the silence of the house. The rain outside only made the loneliness heavier. Lauren and I had been married for 8 years. We met in college back in 2010, at a bar off campus in Bloomington, Indiana. I was a senior at Indiana University. She was a junior. I can still see her. Dark brown hair, sharp green eyes that lit up when she laughed, a smile that felt like a secret meant just for me. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnetic. The kind of person who could light up a room without trying. We started dating a week after we met and never looked back. Or at least, that's what I thought. We built a life together. After college, I took a job in IT support for a logistics company in Indianapolis. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and kept us steady. She jumped right into marketing and climbed the ladder faster than I expected. By 2016, she was already managing a team. She was ambitious, and I was proud of that. I like to think of us as a team, balancing each other out. Me the steady one, her the dreamer, always reaching for the next rung. Our house was modest, a 3-bedroom ranch-style home in a quiet suburb outside Indy. We bought it in 2015 after saving for years. I remember how excited we were signing the papers, how we spent the first night eating takeout pizza on the living room floor because we hadn't unpacked the furniture yet. We were in it together, building brick by brick, or so I believed. But in 2019 something shifted. It was small at first. Missed calls, longer hours, late-night emails she had to send. She brushed it off as work stress, and I wanted to believe her. Everyone gets busy, right? But then there were the little things. The way she started guarding her phone, turning it face down on the counter when she came home. The way her perfume lingered a little too strong after meetings. The sudden new lingerie I never saw her wear at home. I told myself not to be suspicious. I wanted to trust her. Hell, I did trust her. She was my wife. We had been through 8 years of highs and lows. From the recession that nearly cost me my job in 2011 to the time we lost a pregnancy in 2014. That miscarriage nearly broke us, but we pulled through, clinging to each other when everything felt like it was falling apart. After surviving that, I thought nothing could shake us. But that night in September 2019, the ache in my chest was louder than any memory. I stared at her suitcase in the corner of the bedroom. She'd left in a rush that morning, saying she'd be back Sunday evening. She kissed me on the cheek, said she loved me, and walked out the door in her gray blazer and black heels, suitcase rolling behind her. I tried to focus on the little things that made life normal. I ordered Chinese takeout, played a round of FIFA on my Xbox, scrolled mindlessly through Twitter. I even went back to look at old photos of us on my phone. Our trip to Nashville in 2017, a Christmas selfie by the tree in 2018, her birthday dinner at St. Elmo's Steakhouse earlier that year. We looked happy. We were happy. Or at least, that's the story those pictures told. But happiness doesn't always mean honesty. I went to bed late, but I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I grabbed my phone and started scrolling. For some reason, I opened Facebook, something I hadn't done in weeks. That's when I saw it. A photo popped up in my feed because a friend of a friend had liked it. It was Lauren. She was sitting on a rooftop bar, smiling at the camera, a cocktail in her hand. Next to her was her boss, Matt. My stomach flipped. The caption read, "Another great evening in Nashville with the team." Nashville, not Chicago. I stared at the photo, my heart hammering in my chest. The timestamp said it was posted an hour earlier. I zoomed in, studying the details. She looked radiant, her hair styled in loose waves, wearing a dress I had never seen before. Matt was sitting close, too close. Their knees were practically touching. He had his arm casually draped across the back of her chair. She wasn't pulling away. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Maybe the conference had moved? Maybe it was just a casual work dinner? But the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. She hadn't said Nashville. She had said Chicago. And she hadn't mentioned going out with her boss. I scrolled further down the tag list on the photo. Another co-worker had posted a picture earlier that evening. Lauren and Matt sitting side by side at a table, laughing over drinks. In that one, his hand was resting on hers. It was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't looking closely, but I was. And once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. I sat there in the dark, the glow of my phone burning into my eyes, and I felt something inside me crack. Looking back, I can see the signs that had been building for months. The late-night strategy sessions, the sudden extra trips, the way she seemed distracted even when we were together. The business trip excuse was just the final straw, the one that made all the puzzle pieces snap into place. And yet, even as the proof sat right there on my screen, I kept asking myself the same question. Could I be wrong? Could I be overthinking it? Did I really want to know the truth? The truth is, I already knew. That night was the beginning of the end, though I didn't fully realize it then. It was the moment the life I thought I had built, the marriage I thought was unshakable, started to unravel thread by thread. And as I sat there in the silence, rain tapping against the glass, my phone heavy in my hand, I whispered to myself words I wasn't ready to believe. She's lying to me. The morning after I saw those photos, I woke up in a haze. My body felt heavy, like I hadn't slept at all, though I must have drifted off at some point around dawn. When I finally opened my eyes, the world looked different, colder, harsher. Like the light coming through the blinds wasn't just sunlight, but a spotlight on the cracks in my life. I went through the motions of a normal Friday. Coffee, shower, work emails, but everything was laced with this dull hum of disbelief. My brain replayed those images from Facebook on a loop. Her dress, his hand on hers, the way they looked so comfortable together. Every detail was like a thorn digging deeper into my skin. At work, I couldn't focus. My boss, Greg, asked me to troubleshoot a server issue around 11 a.m., and I sat there staring at lines of code without really seeing them. I typed commands, reset configurations, but my mind was thousands of miles away. I thought about Lauren in Nashville, probably sitting in some trendy cafe with Matt, laughing in that way she used to laugh with me. I pictured her phone lighting up with my messages, ignored. I didn't text her that morning. I couldn't. What would I even say? Hey, saw you're in Nashville with your boss. Why did you lie? No, I wasn't ready for that conversation, not yet. I was still in shock, clinging to the faintest hope that there was some explanation, that maybe I had jumped to conclusions. But as the day dragged on, I noticed something that made my stomach twist even tighter. Lauren hadn't sent me a single text all morning. Normally, she'd check in. Good morning, babe. Or, conference is boring. Wish you were here. Even if she was busy, she'd usually send something. But that Friday, nothing. Just silence. By lunchtime, I gave in and sent her a quick message. Hope the conference is going well. Love you. No response. At 2 p.m., I checked again. Still nothing. I opened her Instagram out of habit, even though she rarely posted. Her story lit up at the top of the screen. 2 drinks clinking together, the caption, work hard, play harder, with a winking emoji. My chest tightened. It was her hand in the frame. The little silver bracelet I'd given her for our anniversary last year unmistakable. The other glass? Whiskey neat. And I knew for a fact Matt always drank whiskey neat. He'd mentioned it once at a holiday party. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. By the time she finally texted back around 4:30 p.m., my anger had been simmering all day. Her message was short. Sorry, super busy with meetings. Love you, meetings. Right. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. I didn't respond. That evening, I decided I couldn't just sit in the dark with my thoughts anymore. I needed answers, proof, something tangible beyond a few social media posts. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into our shared phone account online. We'd been on the same Verizon family plan since 2012, and while I never paid much attention to the call logs before, suddenly every number and timestamp mattered. And there it was, dozens of calls between Lauren and Matt. Some as short as a few minutes, others stretching over an hour. At all hours of the day and night. The most recent one, the night before her business trip, nearly 2 hours long. My hands shook as I scrolled. I wanted to throw my laptop across the room. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just sat there, staring at the screen, numb. I closed my eyes and thought about all the times she'd told me she was working late. All the dinners I ate alone, waiting for her to come home. All the times I believed her when she said she was too tired for intimacy. How stupid had I been? But anger wasn't the only thing I felt. Underneath it, there was this deep, aching sadness. Like someone had scooped out my insides and left me hollow. I kept thinking about our wedding day. June 14th, 2013, a humid summer afternoon in Bloomington. She walked down the aisle in a lace gown, smiling at me like I was the only person in the universe. We promised each other forever. And now, 6 years later, she was spending that forever in a Nashville hotel room with her boss. The breaking point came Saturday evening. I hadn't heard much from her all day. Around 8 p.m., I got another text. Flight tomorrow evening, should be home by 9. Can't wait to see you. I stared at the message for a long time. The lies were so casual, so easy for her. She had no idea I already knew. No idea I had seen the photos, the call logs, the Instagram story. Something inside me snapped. I decided I needed more than just digital proof. I needed something undeniable, something she couldn't talk her way out of. So I did what I swore I'd never do. I went through her email. Her laptop was sitting on the desk in our home office. She'd left it behind, probably assuming I'd never look. I opened it, my heart pounding in my ears, and pulled up her Gmail. She always saved her passwords in the browser, and sure enough, it logged me right in. I searched Matt. Dozens of emails filled the screen. Most were work-related, but buried between them were threads that made my stomach churn. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. Counting down the hours until Nashville. The worst one was from 2 weeks earlier. Matt had sent her a hotel confirmation for a conference in Nashville. Attached was a reservation for a suite with a king-sized bed. Her reply? A string of heart emojis. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there in the dark, my head in my hands. My whole body shook with rage and betrayal. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was fact. Cold, undeniable fact. My wife was cheating on me, and not with some stranger, not with some fling. With her boss. The man she spent hours with every week. The man who signed her paychecks. The man who had been to our house for dinner once, sitting across from me at my own table, complimenting the lasagna I'd made. The weight of it all crushed me. I felt humiliated, like the punchline of a joke I didn't know I was part of. And yet, beneath the humiliation, there was a spark of something else. Resolve. I wasn't going to confront her with just suspicions. I wasn't going to give her a chance to twist the story, to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. No. When she walked through that door Sunday night, I was going to be ready. I was going to have everything, the photos, the emails, the call logs. She was going to see exactly what I knew. And for the first time in days, I felt a grim kind of clarity. The marriage I thought I had was already gone. What came next would depend on how I chose to face it. Sunday evening, I sat on the couch waiting. The house was spotless because I had cleaned obsessively that afternoon. Not because I cared about the mess, but because I needed something to do with my hands. The smell of lemon-scented cleaner lingered in the air. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, each second dragging out like an accusation. At 9:12 p.m., headlights swept across the driveway. I froze, every muscle in my body tense. A moment later, the front door opened, and there she was, Lauren, rolling in her suitcase, smiling that casual smile she always used when she came back from a trip. She wore a light sweater, her hair still perfectly styled, makeup barely smudged. She looked refreshed, almost glowing, and I hated that I noticed. She dropped her bag in the entryway and leaned in to kiss me. I pulled back just enough for her lips to graze my cheek instead. The confusion on her face was immediate, a tiny flicker in her green eyes before she smoothed it over with another smile. She started talking about her conference, about how exhausting it was, how the meetings dragged on forever. Her voice was practiced, steady, like she had rehearsed it in her head on the flight back. I let her ramble. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might shake the walls. When she finally paused to ask how my weekend was, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood, walked into the office, and came back with her laptop. I set it on the coffee table between us. Her smile faltered. I didn't say a word. I just opened the browser, pulled up her email, and clicked on the thread with Matt. The subject line was burned into my brain. Nashville. She stared at the screen, frozen. The silence stretched out, heavy and suffocating. I waited for her to deny it, to spin some story, but nothing came. Her face went pale. Her hands started to tremble. Finally, she whispered, "It's not what it looks like." But we both knew that was a lie. I don't even remember exactly what I said after that. My words came out in a rush, anger and hurt spilling over after days of holding it in. I told her about the photos, the call logs, the messages. I told her I knew everything. Every single thing, she cried. At first it was soft, a tear slipping down her cheek. Then it turned into full sobs, her body shaking as she tried to explain. She said it just happened. that she didn't mean for it to go this far, that she still loved me. The clichés hit like bullets, one after another, each one more hollow than the last, and all I could think about was how easily she had lied, how she had kissed me goodbye on Thursday morning, knowing full well she was going to spend the weekend in bed with him. I felt rage, but underneath it, there was this crushing grief. I wanted to scream at her, throw her out, demand answers, but I also wanted to collapse, to rewind time, to erase what I had seen, to go back to when I thought we were happy. Instead, I told her to leave. She begged me to talk, to let her explain, but I couldn't hear it. My chest was too tight, my head pounding like a drum. I told her to pack a bag and go to her sister's place. She hesitated, then finally did as I asked. Watching her walk out the door that night felt surreal, like an out-of-body experience. 8 years together, and just like that, she was gone. The days that followed were a blur. I went to work, but I was barely there. I'd stare at my computer screen, pretending to read emails while my mind replayed everything over and over. My coworkers noticed something was off, but no one asked. Thank God for that. I couldn't have handled their pity. At home, the silence was unbearable. The bed felt like a cavern. I'd lie awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the fridge, the occasional car passing outside. Sometimes I'd grab my phone and scroll through our old photos, torturing myself. Other times, I'd open her emails again, as if rereading the words would somehow change them. My parents noticed too. My mom called one evening, asking how things were. I brushed her off, but she didn't buy it. She has that sixth sense mothers have. Finally, I broke down and told her. There was a long silence on the line, and then she whispered, "Oh, honey." I could hear the heartbreak in her voice, not just for me, but for the family she thought we were building. Lauren tried reaching out, dozens of texts, voicemails. She said she wanted to talk, to fix things, to go to therapy. She said she made a mistake, that Matt didn't mean anything, that she was just confused. But the proof was too clear. It hadn't been a one-time mistake. It had been months, planned trips, late-night phone calls, emotional intimacy long before the physical. Every time her name lit up my phone, I felt sick. I started leaving it on silent, tossing it across the room so I wouldn't have to see her face pop up. The betrayal bled into every part of my life. Food lost its taste. Music sounded empty. Even little routines, Saturday morning coffee runs, Sunday grocery shopping, felt wrong because she wasn't there. And the reason she wasn't there was like poison in my blood. Friends tried to step in. My buddy Jason invited me to a Colts game to get my mind off things. I went, sat in the stands surrounded by shouting fans, and felt nothing. The Colts won in overtime, and everyone around me was buzzing with excitement. But inside I was hollow. Nights were the worst. My mind raced with images of her and Matt in that hotel room. Their laughter echoing, her body wrapped up in his. I hated myself for picturing it, but I couldn't stop. Every detail haunted me, as vivid as if I had been there. By October, I had lost 10 pounds without trying. People at work commented on how thin I looked. I told them I was just stressed. That was the truth, in the shallowest sense. But the real truth was deeper, uglier. The fallout wasn't just emotional. It was physical, mental, spiritual. My foundation had cracked, and I didn't know how to rebuild it. And yet, even in the depths of that despair, a part of me knew I couldn't stay there forever. At some point, I would have to make a choice, whether to let the betrayal define me or to claw my way out and take back some kind of control. But in those early weeks, I wasn't there yet. I was just broken, sifting through the ashes of the life I thought I had, trying to make sense of a fire I never saw coming. By November, the numbness had started to fade, replaced by something colder. Focus, almost clinical. The raw anguish from the first weeks had dulled, leaving behind this sharp, clear-edged determination. I realized that if I stayed in that pit of despair, Lauren's betrayal would keep poisoning every part of my life. I couldn't undo the past, but I could control what came next. I had to. I started small. I changed all the locks on the house, one by one, carefully documenting everything. I moved our joint savings into a separate account I controlled alone. I went through our shared finances, meticulously tracking every transaction. It was almost obsessive, but I needed a sense of control over something. Anything. For months she had been hiding, manipulating, scheming right under my nose. Now it was my turn to set the boundaries, to reclaim my space. The first real step toward taking action came when I decided to confront Matt. Not in person, but in a way he couldn't ignore. I compiled everything. Screenshots of their messages, the emails, the hotel reservations, timestamps, everything. I printed it out, organized it into a folder, making sure every detail was undeniable. I didn't want to yell, to threaten. I wanted to expose the truth, to make sure he understood that he had stepped into a line he should never have crossed. I sent the folder to him via certified mail. No message, no explanation, just the evidence. Days later, I got the confirmation that it had been delivered. I didn't care if he felt shame, guilt, or anger. I just wanted him to know that I knew, that the web of lies had been unraveled. Lauren reached out after that, thinking the emotional fallout might manipulate me back into something familiar. She left voicemails, sent texts, even emails begging for forgiveness, saying she'd change, that it was a mistake she never meant to happen. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I had realized something fundamental. Trust, once broken this way, couldn't be repaired with words. It needed proof, accountability, and even then, it might not survive. I started documenting everything she did during that time. Calls, emails, locations. Not for revenge exactly, but because I needed to see clearly, to understand fully the depth of what had happened. There was a twisted clarity in it, a way to organize the chaos. And with that clarity came something else: empowerment. I also leaned heavily on my friends and family. Jason became my rock. I'd vent to him for hours, pacing the living room, shaking my fists, trying to get the anger out in some physical form. My mom called almost daily, listening and validating my grief without judgment. Even my therapist, whom I had started seeing reluctantly in early October, helped me untangle the mix of shame, rage, and heartbreak that I hadn't been able to face alone. Therapy became my battlefield for reclaiming sanity. Around mid-November, I made a decision that surprised even me. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to rebuild, smarter, stronger. I started focusing on my own life in ways I'd neglected during the marriage. I signed up for an advanced IT certification course, the kind of thing I had put off because life had always seemed too busy. I started running again, early mornings in the crisp Indiana air, the rhythm of my feet on pavement a grounding force. Each mile was a reminder that I could endure, that I could reclaim my body and mind from the betrayal that had invaded them. Then, there was the hardest part: letting go of the image of the woman I thought I knew. Lauren had been my partner, my confidant, the person I shared dreams and fears with for nearly a decade. But the truth was unflinching. The person I had trusted so completely had deceived me on a level that couldn't be excused. Accepting that reality was brutal, but necessary. Around this time, I also confronted the subtle, insidious guilt I'd been carrying. Was it somehow my fault? Had I not been enough? Was I inadequate? Therapy, late-night self-reflection, long runs. It all forced me to face the truth. This was her choice, not a reflection of my worth. That realization was liberating in a way I hadn't anticipated. With that mental space cleared, I began to make tangible changes in my social life too. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years, people who reminded me of who I was before the marriage consumed every corner of my identity. I joined a local photography club, something I had always loved but abandoned when life got busy. I started taking small weekend trips, exploring places I'd always wanted to see, alone, learning how to enjoy my own company again. By December, I had reached a new phase: action without rage, control without obsession. Lauren tried contacting me again during the holiday season, citing nostalgia, memories, even our wedding anniversary. I didn't engage. I sent one brief message, carefully neutral. This isn't going to work. We are done. That was it. The simplicity of it was strangely satisfying. No drama, no manipulation, no room for her games. And then came Matt again, or rather, the ripple effects of his betrayal. My methodical approach, emails, evidence, documentation, had begun to spread quietly. Mutual colleagues started noticing tension between him and the team. I didn't seek revenge publicly, but the awareness that the truth had a way of surfacing without my intervention was empowering. I realized that exposure doesn't need theatrics. It only needs accuracy and timing. As January rolled in, I had transformed my grief into a foundation. I wasn't happy yet. Hell, I wasn't even fully healed. But I was no longer a victim, no longer paralyzed by her betrayal. Every morning, I woke up a little more myself, a little more resilient. Every late-night jog, every page of study material, every smile shared with a friend felt like reclamation. I was building a new life, one where betrayal was a lesson rather than a definition. And in that transformation, I found something unexpected: clarity about the kind of life I wanted, the boundaries I needed, and the people I wanted to keep close. Betrayal had ripped the old world apart. But in the rubble, I discovered something stronger. By February, I was even starting to think about dating again. Not because I wanted to replace her, but because I realized that love could exist again, on my terms. That idea was terrifying, exhilarating, and strangely healing all at once. I knew the path ahead would be complicated, fraught with doubt and caution. But I was ready. I had been tested, broken, and rebuilt, and that kind of resilience doesn't fade easily. I learned that taking control isn't about vengeance, and it isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming yourself from the chaos someone else caused. About facing betrayal not with fury alone, but with intelligence, patience, and self-respect. That realization became my armor, my compass, and my anchor. By the time Lauren and Matt faded from my immediate life, the storm had passed. I could think without the crushing weight of betrayal clouding every thought. I could plan my days, my weeks, my future without the ghosts of lies haunting me at every turn. I was no longer just surviving. I was rebuilding. Spring 2020 arrived like a quiet reminder that life keeps moving, whether you're ready for it or not. The snow melted in slow, determined rivulets across the Indiana suburbs, and the air finally carried hints of warmth and renewal. I watched it from my kitchen window one Saturday morning, sipping coffee, the steam curling around my fingers like a fragile shield. It struck me then, more than ever, how much had changed, and how much I had survived. Lauren and Matt were no longer a daily presence in my life. She had moved out completely, taking only the clothes and belongings she deemed necessary. Matt had quietly disappeared from our social circles, likely reassigned at work or choosing a different path. I didn't chase them. I didn't need closure from them, because I had found closure within myself. It was a strange, liberating feeling, a sense of completion that didn't hinge on apologies, tears, or confrontations. The betrayal had existed, undeniable and raw, but it no longer had power over my choices, my moods, my life. I started hosting dinner parties again, inviting friends I had neglected. People who reminded me of simpler, happier times. There was laughter, there were stories, and there was a sense of community that had been absent during the months of devastation. I found myself telling parts of the story, cautiously, to those I trusted. Not for sympathy, but because sharing it made it less like a wound, and more like a lesson. Every retelling softened the edges of the memory, reshaping the pain into clarity. I also returned to my photography with new intensity, capturing quiet mornings in the park, the sun catching the dew on grass, children playing by the river. It was my therapy. Each photo was a reminder that beauty exists even in moments of betrayal and loss, that life continues to unfold in its own stubborn way. My portfolio began to grow, and I even sold a few prints online. It wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming a part of myself I had almost forgotten. And then, there was love again. Not the desperate, anxious kind that clings to the illusion of security, but a measured, mindful love, the kind that builds slowly, on trust, mutual respect, and shared values. I met someone unexpectedly at a photography workshop in Carmel. Her name was Emily. She was funny, grounded, and unapologetically herself. We bonded over shutter speeds, lighting, and the way we both loved capturing fleeting moments. For the first time in months, I didn't feel guilt or hesitation about feeling joy. By June 2020, I realized something profound. The betrayal that had once defined the worst days of my life had inadvertently led me to a new understanding of myself. I had learned the hard way about the fragility of trust, the consequences of dishonesty, and the importance of emotional honesty in a relationship. I had also discovered that heartbreak, while excruciating, can catalyze growth, self-awareness, and even unexpected joy. I still remember one evening, sitting on the porch, Emily beside me, the sunset painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. I thought about Lauren, about the nights I spent staring at the ceiling, the tears, the rage, the gnawing emptiness. And I realized something. I had survived not because of revenge, not because of evidence or confrontation, but because I refused to let the betrayal define me. I chose to rebuild my life around truth, integrity, and self-respect. Looking back now, I don't harbor hatred for her. I feel a quiet sadness, a recognition of loss, and gratitude for the lessons learned. The love I shared with Lauren was real at the time, even if it became corrupted by deception. And yet, the story doesn't end with betrayal. It ends with resilience, transformation, and hope. By the end of 2020, I had fully embraced my new life. Emily and I traveled to Chicago for a weekend, just the two of us, exploring the city's architecture, museums, and vibrant streets. Standing on the Navy pier, looking out at the lake, I realized I was no longer haunted by the past. I had rebuilt my world, not by erasing the pain, but by integrating it, learning from it, and refusing to let it hold me back. I sometimes think about how different life could have been if I hadn't faced those painful truths. Would I have stayed oblivious, comfortable in a life that wasn't real? Or would I have eventually discovered the truth, months or years later, and endured even more damage? I don't know. What I do know is this. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. I chose not to suffer any longer. The last message I ever received from Lauren was in January, a few weeks after everything had come to light. She apologized again, said she wished things had been different, and asked if we could stay friends someday. I read it once, let it sit in my inbox for a week, and then deleted it. There was no anger, no lingering bitterness, just the final act of closure. As I sit here now, writing this and thinking back on the past year, I feel a mixture of gratitude and quiet triumph. Life didn't go the way I expected. It went differently, brutally, painfully differently. But I endured, I grew, I found love again. I reclaimed my identity. I learned the hard truths about trust, about betrayal, and about myself. And in the end, that's what matters. Not the people who left or lied, not the heartbreak, not the betrayal, but the way I chose to rise above it. To turn the darkest chapter of my life into a story of resilience, self-respect, and hope. I am not defined by her actions. I am defined by the way I responded, the way I rebuilt, the way I chose to live my life authentically and bravely. And for the first time in a long time, I feel truly, completely free.